Hey, what's up, Mavs fans? Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me here for my latest video on Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to like and comment on this video. Let me know how you're feeling about the Mavericks and any trade ideas that you may have, as we are just a few days away from the NBA trade deadline. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports, and be sure to download the Inside the Mavs podcast, the official Mavericks podcast on 97.1 The Freak, wherever you get podcasts for free. Trade things continue to heat up for your Dallas Mavericks as we are just a few days away from the NBA trade deadline. Remember, this time a year ago, we saw the blockbuster trade that saw Kyrie Irving be acquired by the Mavericks. And of course, he was able to sign a 3-year deal to remain a part of this team as he looks to be coming back. It looks like on Monday when the Dallas Mavericks visit the Joel Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers. So some good signs for the Mavericks in terms of health for a team that's 26-23 right now, 3-7 in their last 10, a team that has a negative point differential right now after blowing what was a 25-point lead on Saturday to the Milwaukee Bucks to see them lose 129-117. And things obviously right now not going well for this team, and they could use a jolt of energy, whether it be more health in terms of the return of Kyrie Irving, but also maybe a little bit of shakeup when it comes to this roster, much like how we saw last year, the Mavericks deciding to go all in and go get Kyrie Irving. And so far, when the two of them have been on the floor together, I'm talking about Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, it's looked pretty good, obviously, offensively. The problem is we haven't seen much of those two on the floor together because of the amount of injuries that not only those two have sustained, but the likes of Derek Lively and others have sustained, to not be able to see the consistency, chemistry, and continuity that we thought we could see for this team. The Mavericks have had more starting lineups than any other team in the NBA so far this year, and we haven't even played 50 games yet. So that just gives you an idea of where things are and where things stand for the Mavericks. But as we start to look forward to the NBA trade deadline on February the 8th, we do have some fresh reporting from Mark Stein, longtime NBA insider, writing for Substack these days, in his latest piece detailing what the Mavericks could be potentially looking at as far as their trade pursuits are concerned. Mark Stein saying that league sources are telling him that the Charlotte Hornets have designs on pursuing Josh Green if the Mavericks want to get PJ Washington. Now, there's obviously been a lot of links and connections with not only PJ Washington, but Kyle Kuzma as well from the Washington Wizards. Stein also saying that the Mavericks are prioritizing power forwards and not small forwards in this market to help bolster their size on the front court, which you and I have had several discussions about when it comes to this team. So they're looking, it appears, in the right direction. The question will be, how much does a trade move the needle for a team right now that can't get healthy, that can't play any type of real defense, and for a team that needs to find a little bit more help on the front court? Does a move for a PJ Washington help you? Let's look at it. If Charlotte is really hot on Josh Green and wants to have him, really, if you look at the both of them right now, between Josh Green and PJ Washington, their trade value may not be any higher than what it is currently. You look at PJ Washington's contract in the middle of a 3-year, $46.5 million deal, being paid over $16 million in base salary this year. Of course, Josh Green signing a 3-year extension, nearly $42 million for the Mavericks. And you look at what they have, as we look at the assets that the Mavericks have right here, the Mavericks are looking at something when it comes to the poison pill, when it comes to Josh Green's contract. You say, Kevin, what does that mean? So he has that poison pill restriction. So for trade purposes, it's coming from Bobby Marks. $4.7 million is used as outgoing salary, and he would count $11.4 million in incoming salary for an acquiring team of Josh Green. So not necessarily prohibitive to move Josh Green, but there is a little bit of that poison pill restriction there. And for Green and Washington, who both of them right now are playing pretty good basketball, a trade for both of these teams would make sense in a lot of ways. For PJ Washington, a guy that goes 6'7", 6'8", 25 years of age, from the DFW area, so he would be coming home to Dallas, where he trains as well, to be able to play for his hometown team in the Mavericks. And for Josh Green, it would be a change of scenery and a new start for him. Let's look at what they're doing, the both of them, over the last 10 to 15 games. We'll start with Josh Green, obviously. You've seen the way that Green's been able to knock down three-pointers here recently with his ability to be able to knock down especially corner threes for the Dallas Mavericks. So you look at his last, 15 games for him, averaging nearly 11 points per game, shooting over 51% from the field, also shooting nearly 44% from three. Let's take it to his last 10 games for Josh Green, where he's playing nearly 34 minutes a night, shooting 51.5% from the field, over 48% from three on 5 attempts from downtown per game. And even if you want to take it over the last 5, where he's been really good, averaging over 14 points per game, shooting nearly 54% from the field and 48% from three, again on volume with 5 threes taken per game. Green is playing some of his best basketball right now. And if you're the Mavericks and you feel like this may be the move to make in order to get more size on your front line with PJ Washington, Josh Green's trade value right now is pretty high given the up and down nature that we've seen from him, not just this season, but throughout his entire career so far with the Mavericks. And with his play, his consistent play right now, you may be able to feel good about moving him, especially if you're able to get not only PJ Washington, but as some of you have suggested, maybe a guy like Nick Richards as well, coming over from Charlotte to come to the Mavericks. Let's take it to PJ Washington and what he's been doing over his last 5, 10, and 15 games as well, where he's also had a 43-point game in the middle of all that. Let's look at his last 5 games. PJ Washington right now averaging over 20 points per game, shooting nearly 53% from the field, but also shooting nearly 38% from three on volume at 6 threes per contest. Let's look at his last 10 games. 16 points per game, shooting 53% from the field, shooting 42% from three, again on volume at 5 attempts per game. So you could tell that both of these players right now, ahead of the NBA trade deadline, are playing some of their best basketball. And if you're Charlotte, you already have made moves to try and get things more cleared out. You may be moving on from Gordon Hayward. You're trying to reroute a Kyle Lowry. You're trying to figure out some things as far as your team is concerned to be able to make this thing go. So if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you may be in a situation where you can make something happen. As I mentioned, Washington may be willing to deal with Kyle Kuzma. We've had extensive conversation when it comes to Kyle Kuzma, and we won't necessarily go into that here today because we know what he brings to the table. A descending contract, a guy that can get you 20 a night and can defend when he's motivated to do so. But he would be a little bit more expensive option given the fact that he's making around $19 million, but he does have that descending contract going forward as part of his 4-year deal. So again, we know what Kuzma brings to the table. But PJ Washington may be the option that makes the most sense given how comfortable he would be in Dallas, as I mentioned, with DFW ties. And, of course, he would be a guy that could fit right in seamlessly. And you've seen the kind of game that he's able to bring, a guy with size that can score, can put the ball on the floor. But now these days as well, shooting a lot better from the three-point line. And that's what the Mavericks need. Not only that, so far this year, PJ Washington in 29 minutes of play has given you 5 rebounds a game. I would expect some of that to increase when you play alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. All this to say is whether you feel like the Mavericks need to make a move to shake things up based on the lack of consistency that we've seen from them so far this year, or they need to make a move to help improve their ceiling based on what you feel like they can be once they get fully formed and healthy, a move may need to be made. It's been quiet so far around the NBA trade deadline. To this point, we've seen earlier moves in the NBA trade season already go down, but the Mavericks, who of course made the move for Kyrie Irving, and then you saw not too long after that Kevin Durant be moved to the Phoenix Suns, there are some things that could actually go down here that could really make things interesting. So PJ Washington to the Mavericks, does it make sense as a fit? I think it does. Does Josh Green make sense as a fit for the Charlotte Hornets? Yeah, I think it does. Both guys playing extremely well, both guys giving themselves opportunity to see their trade value increase, and both would help their new teams based off of what they would bring. Josh Green as an athletic guy that can knock down three-pointers and can finish in transition. PJ Washington coming to Dallas, a guy that can not only knock down shots, but also provides you size on your front court where you're extremely limited. And you've seen how that much has taken a toll on this Mavericks team throughout the course of the year, whether it be guys like Maxi Kleber missing extended time, Dwight Powell missing time as well. The Mavericks have refused, for the most part, to use Rashawn Holmes in a way that could help bolster their front line as well. So there makes a lot of sense for this move to happen for both teams. And I think for Washington, I think he would find himself playing really, really good basketball with two high-level guys. And anytime you get to play alongside Luka Doncic, especially, you're going to find yourself playing with easy looks and being able to make things happen, especially on the offensive end. The question would be for Washington on the defensive end, can he help you and improve on that side of the ball to be able to remain on the floor as well? So there will be no shortage of more trade conversation and discussion as we get closer to the NBA trade deadline. But the Mavericks have got to find a way, even with all the adversity that they've been through so far this year. When I had a chance to sit down and talk with Mavericks assistant Jared Dudley, he detailed that the amount of games that their guys have missed, the travel scheduled, all the things that they have been dealing with so far this year, it's a wonder that this team is still 3 games above 500. Yes, I know, have lost 7 of their last 10 games, and injuries have been a big part of that. But if they can somehow find a way to get healthy, maybe they can get themselves to a top 6 spot in the West and have to avoid the play-in. But right now, as we sit, when they play on Monday, that will be game number 50 on the season. In essence, time is starting to run out, even with 32 games left after Monday's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. It doesn't get any easier. You're playing a 3-game East Coast road trip that includes the Sixers, the Nets, and the Knicks. And the Knicks right now have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. So you've got to find a way to string together some wins before the All-Star break. And oh, by the way, you still got to see the Oklahoma City Thunder prior to the All-Star break as well. So for the Mavericks right now, they're going through a rough stretch right now of basketball with injuries and adversity taking their toll on them. Inconsistency, especially from guys like Grant Williams as well. They have got to do something to make sure that they're shaking up this roster and trying to increase their ceiling. And maybe the move for PJ Washington is the right one based on what their needs are on that front line and the way that he's playing right now to give you confidence that he can come in right away and assimilate to this team and give you the best opportunity to improve not only your front line, but also the overall team based off of what they need and what they're going to have to need down the stretch. If the Mavericks are willing to make that move, then go ahead and make it. And what you're able to give up in order to do it, I would not expect you would need to obviously give up the first-round pick that you have available to you. So, NBA trade deadline on February the 8th. Will the Mavericks make a move, whether it be for PJ Washington or Kyle Kuzma? Kuzma probably, you feel like, gives you a better chance to increase your ceiling that much more because he's been an NBA champion. He can provide you defense when he is willing to and motivated to do so. Or a little bit lesser move in PJ Washington with maybe a little bit more upside since he is younger and then can be able to grow alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And if you're willing to part with Josh Green in order to do it, then you go ahead and make that move. All that remains to be seen going forward here for the Dallas Mavericks. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to download and subscribe to the podcast, the Inside the Mavs podcast, wherever you get podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. Also, like and comment on this video. Let me know your thoughts on PJ Washington, Josh Green, Kyle Kuzma, and others. And we'll talk about it right here on Inside the Mavs on Kevin Gray Sports. Until then, I'll talk to you later. Peace.